Hey True Schools, it's Brent here with another tutorial on time for our game. In this tutorial we're going to get into the crux, or the main part of our game, where we're going to compare the two times that each player makes and say who won and by how many seconds. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, I'm hoping that in the preso that we had, we worked through a way in which to convert times. So the way that we're going to do it is each player is going to have a variable that is the total number of seconds that it took for that player to play their game. Okay, so let's go into the player one time, and let's go into the data category here, and you'll see that there is a variable here called player one total seconds. Okay, player one total seconds. At the moment it's 0. It's always set to 0. Actually, just to make sure that it's always set to 0, when it's clicked, let's just go ahead and set the player one total seconds to 0. So that means it'll always start from 0. Alright, so what we need to do is to take all these values, the milliseconds, the seconds, and the minutes, and convert them into seconds. So I like to just break it down step by step, and then we can put it all into one statement together. Okay, so eventually we'll get this set block, and we're going to set the player one total seconds to some value. Alright, this is going to be a combination of values. So the first thing that we can do is we can take the number of minutes that it took player one, and when we convert from minutes into seconds, 1 minute, we know that 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. So if we have 2 minutes, that would be 120 seconds. The seconds are getting bigger. So all we need to do is multiply it by 60, the number of minutes. So you can go to your operators, you can get this little multiplication symbol here, so that's the little asterisk that you'll see there, and we can take the player one minutes and we can just multiply that by 60, and that will give us the number of seconds in minutes, the number of seconds that it took for each minute that player one was playing. Okay, so that's the minutes done. Perfect. If we need to convert the seconds into seconds, that's pretty simple. That was just player one seconds. So that is the second conversion done. That was a nice easy one. Alright, so now we need to convert our milliseconds into seconds. So what kind of value is this going to look like? We knew that when we converted our minutes into seconds, the number of seconds was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But let's think about this. If we've got 1 second, yeah, that's made up of 100 milliseconds. So if we've got less than 100 milliseconds, we've definitely got less than 1 second, because we know that 100 milliseconds is equal to a second. So we would need to divide our number of milliseconds by 100. Okay, and that will give us the number of seconds. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's jump in here and let's get that dividing operator there, and let's get our player one milliseconds. Now I encourage you to make sure that you're putting all these right values in. There's a lot of variables going on here, so player one milliseconds, that's why it's really important to name these. Okay, player one. So these are our three things. And we need to add them together. Remember, this is going to become a decimal value now. This will become a decimal value. So we need to add all these things together. So we need to take the player one minutes, and we need to add to that the player one seconds, and we need to add the decimal milliseconds. Now we can just grab that whole thing and pop it in there. See, that was a little bit easier to do than trying to work it all out, and if you just tried to do that, that would probably confuse you. So we can set the player one total seconds. I'm going to double click that, and you'll see that it should maybe come up with 7.1 here. So if we do that, it didn't, because we're not in that particular state. Well, let's just go ahead and play this game quickly. So we'll go ahead. Yes. Actually, let's just restart that game. Here we go. Let's go ahead and play this game quickly. And there we go. Well done. 7.4 seconds, as you can see there. So that is exactly what we were looking for. Alright, so you can probably go ahead and do the exact same thing, but for player 2. And you know actually what I would do is I would just duplicate, actually I would just pop that into my backpack. And I go over to player 2, I'd take that out of my backpack, I would pop there. We're no longer taking our player 1, we're taking our player 2, and then all this needs to change obviously to our player 2 stuff. So player 1 minutes, you don't want that anymore, you want player 2 minutes, and so on and so forth. So I'll speed this video up. And there we go. So now my player 2 is in there. So if I get that out and I check out my player 2's total seconds here. And another bug that we've got is we did not set our game clock back to 0 there. So we'll need to go ahead and do that. So we'll fix that up in a second. There we go. So now our player 2's time is up there, so we've got those 2 times, and we've actually got 2 values in seconds now. That'll make it really easy for us to figure out who won the game. Alright, so I said that we've got to fix that bug that we had at the start, sorry, not the start, that we had when we pressed the start button for the player 2's game. So the reason we have that is because we do not reset the game clock when we start the game. So let's do that. If you go into the stage, you go when this button is clicked. I'm actually just going to get these 3 ones here, these set game minutes all to 0, and just before we start that forever block, I'm just going to go in and set all those back to 0. I'll clean that up and do that. Everything is back to 0 and as we would expect it. Cool, I'll leave it there for that video. In the next video, I'm going to get into comparing those 2 values and saying who actually won the game. And that will be the end of our series. I'll see you then.